What up, guys? Dr. Vic here, and you're listening to the Mindful Chiropractor Podcast. Each week, coming out with you with something to help you level up in your life, in your practice, and to really find that true fulfillment that we all seek, that freedom that we all seek. This episode is something that I've talked about before. I've worked with coaching clients in the entrepreneurial world and some chiropractors, and we talked about, how to achieve certain levels of success, how to rise up in our life in all areas, right? I don't just want to talk about profits, even though my coaching program says I'm going to help you double your profits, or I'll teach you how to double your profits. Or I even have a flagship program which says, hey, in 1 year, we're going to double your profits. And it's one of the things where people say, you don't talk about money, you're not about money, but then you're saying you're going to double people's profits. Well, profits is a little more enticing than it's going to be saying, hey, I'm going to increase your impact in life. And impact means you on every single person, every single thing that you're around. But it's not as pulling. It doesn't attract as much. So profits is someone that says, hey, I would love to have more profits. I would love to level up in my life. And so what I teach and what I do is the 5 elements of life. But in that process, one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the things that we need to work on in order to achieve higher levels of consciousness. Higher levels of vibration, higher levels. When I say higher levels, what I mean by that is the higher vibe you go, the more fulfillment, the more joy, the more bliss, the more things you attract in your life, like money and other things like better relationships, better physical body. All these different things come into play when you are showing up at your best version. But you see, in life, we have to do the work that is what I call the subconscious work, the inner work. This is the inner critic stuff. The who's in your head putting you down a lot of the times, right? And it's not your voice. It's someone else that's been programmed in your mind. And you see, this journey all starts between the age 0 and 7. Science has proven this over and over again, that between age 0 and 7 is actually when we get imprinted with things in our mind that becomes built into the subconscious. And now we're automatically running that all the time. I mean, let's face it, 95% of the time, your subconscious mind, my subconscious mind, is dictating our lives. We're in autopilot most of the time. And so how do we break out of that, right? You call it the matrix, right? How do we break out of the matrix and become more conscious and aware of what things are? This takes a lot of practice, and this is something I teach massively on because for me, I want to help individuals become more aware, raise their consciousness level, and do more greater good for the world. Because the more we can help you unleash who you really are, then all of a sudden you're raising your vibration, your light to the world, which helps makes a huge transformation in the world, which we need drastically. And so when we look at these factors, when we look at that, we have to look at the programming of the mind. Some people call this baggage. Some people call it traumas. We all have these things. No one escapes that. You got to understand, we came into this world pure, right? We came into the world pure. And I have no other way to phrase this. So forgive me if you don't like what I say. But we've had damaged adults mess with our purity. Till all of a sudden, it damaged us as we became older. In chiropractic, we have a saying: rather work with, healthy babies than damaged adults. And what we mean by that is, when you're a child, you're in a pure state of health. You're vibrant. You're adaptive. But over time, more bioaccumulation of stress that happens. All of a sudden, what happens then? We're starting to now be stuck and wired in stress more. We're firing up that amygdala more than we are the prefrontal cortex. We are starting to have more knee-jerk reactions, more impulsiveness, right? These are things that we're creating dis-ease within the body because we have more subluxations being built in and patternized, and the body's reorganizing itself with those miscommunication and having to fill the gaps. So when you have all these things going on, that's a damaged adult. It's not expressing their full potential. It's not allowing them to express the uniqueness that they have within. And so we do this. And the key thing is we always have to look back. I can share so many things with you guys about triggers and so forth. And I have some videos coming out with that, but in my socials and whatnot. But it's one of the things that when you have in your life, if you want to achieve anything greater, if you want to make more money, if you want to have a better marriage and relationships with your kids or your family, if you want to have a better body, better physically in shape, if you want to have a better mindset and having a clearer, sharper mindset, or if you want to have a better mission and purpose in life or have more money, whatever that is, you have to work on your vibration. You have to work on the inner stuff. You have to work on the stuff that's holding you back. And in one of my podcasts called The Mindful Experiment, we released one that talked about traumas and what that does to us and so forth. And this is very similar to that, because what happens in life is that when we hold on to this baggage, this prison that we put ourselves in, thinking this is how life is, and when we think we know, here's the thing you want to pay attention to. When you think you know life, or you think you know someone, you think you know this, you've let your ego take over. You let the conditioning of how the mind picks up on patterns and said, well, this is how it is. And technically, that is the most damaging thing you can do. When you say you know something, you stopped learning. When you say you know this person, you stopped in that relationship. How many times in marriage do we look and say, hey, I know you. I know this is how you are. Guys, I fall to this too. I am not perfect. I say these things to my wife sometimes, and I kick myself in the ass because I'm like, this is, what am I doing? I'm putting her in a box. I'm limiting who she is, and I'm not letting her be herself, right? I'm not letting the opportunity for her to grow and expand. I'm just judging her where she is instead of where she's going. And we all do this at times. We do this with our own kids. We do this in our own elements. I do this to myself sometimes. I'll judge where I'm at rather than where I'm going. And it's like, I have to break through that pattern. That's just something I deal with on a daily basis that I'm always working on. And there's days where I'm like very victorious over this. And there's some times where I'm defeated by that. But at the end of the day, I'm human and I'm doing what I can is best for me to help myself grow and evolve. But the thing is, you got to do that inner work in the past because it's 0 to 7. And there's many ways, there's many tips, there's many tricks, there's many things I can share, many things I could teach on how you can do that, how you can tap into that element. But I'm going to give you a couple things here, because if you don't do this work, you'll never excel at all levels. Yeah, you may be able to make more money. I know people who have, millions, they make millions a year. And it's one of the things where God bless them. And I love that for them. I'm very happy for them. But the inner stuff that I see is still there. Like they didn't work on that. And I hope the day, I pray for them because I'm like, hey, get to that. It was all about money at one point, and that's what they wanted to thrive, to show their success, right? That's a survival mechanism. I got to show my worth based on how much money I make. That's me. I was that way. And then you get to the point, you're making the money, you got the toys, you got everything you want, and you're happy with it. And you can have more toys if you want. You can do whatever you want with it. But there's not, now all of a sudden, it's like that identity that you that you thought was what you wanted to get to, is just a survival mechanism to prove something in the past. And that's what I went through. And once I broke away from that, then I redefined what success was to me. I redefined my life and what was important to me. Right. And some people say, hey, Doc, why don't you, have these? I remember one guy was saying, he's like, hey, why don't you, where's your BMW? Where's your Mercedes? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're a doctor. I see how many patients you have in here. You got to be driving one of those. I said, nah, I'm not in the cars. And he's like, huh? What do you mean? I was like, I could care less about a BMW or a Mercedes. Those are not important to me. And he's like, so what car do you drive? I was like, pickup truck. And they're like, a pickup truck? I was like, yeah, I like trucks. And that's what I want. And I'm like, I don't care about cars. Point A to point B is all I care about, right? I don't care anything else. I learned this very young, not young, about 6-7 years ago, I learned from someone who was was very rich. And he said, I forgot who it was. I think it was John Ma. Anyhow, the owner of Alibaba. And he said, people get so summed up about what car to drive. So you can have a $500,000 car, or you can have a $20,000 car. It's still going to get you to the same destination. And I was like, damn, that's true. And plus, you buy a car, most of the time it depreciates. So what's the point of that? Right? Why have that? If you values and, there's some tactics I teach about like, hey, if you need a write-off, then and you own a business and you need a write-off, nice, not bad to have a car. Right. My wife did that. She has a very nice car. And that's what she wanted. And I said, hey, this is the number we can go up to. So whatever you want at that number, I really don't care. And it was one of those things where she's like, fine, let's do it. But there's some tips and tricks to that and all this stuff. And I teach these in other podcasts and other episodes. And in my coaching program, I go through those. But it's one of the things where, what is, at the end of the day, are you living your truth? And how can you break away from those patterns? How can you break away from those things? And you got to do this inner work. You got to break through this cultural programming, your family programming, your ancestral programming. Ancestral just means things that have passed down from generation to generation that you haven't broke, right? And the beautiful thing about ancestral curses, or passing it down, is that once you heal from that, everyone in the lines, front and back, forward and back, past and future, if you want to look at that, also heal. It's called the quantum entanglement. And so that's the power of what you can do. But in order to achieve true success, and to me, my definition of true success is freedom. True success to me is freedom of having to do whatever I want, having the money that I need to do whatever I want to do. I have the time with my family, and I can build healthy relationships. I can practice on my mindset and challenge my mind all day, every day. I can go ahead and work out and keep my body to be in the best shape possible. One of my visions for me, and I've said this to my wife many times, I'm going to be one of the best damn looking 40-year-olds. And I don't mean that from a facial look. I mean that from a physical aspect. I'll have a nice glow, no wrinkles. I got a bald head, so it works out nice. But, and I have goals in the 50 and 60 and 70. Like I see some guys in their 60s and 70s and they're jacked. And I'm like, that will be me in my 60s and 70s. And it's not like, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to look like that. No, it's because what I tap into is the power of visualization, the essence of what do I feel? How do I feel when I'm in that shape? How do I feel when I'm jacked and shredded? I don't care about being jacked. I like to be shredded. And shredded just means slimmed down, barely any fat on my body, right? And I feel good. I have a lot of energy and my body feels great. And I'm always challenging it. So that is what it means for me. But it's, again, stop with the programming, right? I grew up, I was a chubby kid up until about 13 years, 15 years old. I always had a gut. And my mom used to say, oh, it's a natural belly, which I couldn't stand that. And she always say, you're a husky kid, which I don't like the word husky. I'm over that now, but I used to have triggers with it. But long story short, it was the programming, right? And what I used to see, what was health, what was attractive. Like I liked girls. So it was like, hey, what gets a girl's eye? So you start looking at these things and it was like, oh, being in physical shape. So I put in my head, women will like me if I'm in shape, right? Here's cultural. This is programming that was going on in my mind. And I saw that because, my dad would pick out things that I needed to work on or whatever it may be. And so that's what I did, right? And then I got there. And then I was like, yeah, girls like the body, but there's other elements to this, right? And so then I went deeper. And this is kind of what I've gone through many times in my life, because what happens is you're breaking through the cultural programming. And so you got to let go of what it is that look into that inner critic stuff, because that's holding you down. When you put energy into stuff, whether you're aware of it or not, you only have a certain amount of energy to give. You only have a certain amount of energy to manifest and create in your life. And so if you're looking at stuff internally from a subconscious way of old stuff, that takes a lot of energy, especially emotions, because when you have negative emotions, they drain you more than positive. And because it's easy to focus there. So you start focusing on those things, whether you know it or not. And it's holding you back from the life that you want to achieve, holding you back with your patients, connecting with your patients, being able to be in the moment with them, because that's really where the power is. Like I could tell you all the best, best that I know, practices growing techniques and all these techniques that are out there, and tactics and marketing and all that stuff that works. But what I've learned, and what I learned for my own self, is that I've grown my business many times by just focusing on who's in front of me and just putting my energy there and not thinking about, oh, should I get another referral? Should I do this? Should I do that? How can I twist it this way? Ooh, they said they had a success story. Oh, or they said something nice about how they're feeling. Let me get them to say a success story. I didn't do that. All I cared about was them and being there for them. And if they shared something positive, I would ask them, hey, how's that impacting your life? How's that making a positive impact in your life? How's that making things easier to do? How's that making life worth living more? These are the questions I would ask my patients, because what I want to see is, what does it mean to them to start feeling better? What does it mean not to have pain anymore? What does it mean that you can go play with your kids now? What does it mean that you can have your favorite meal and not have a digestive or acid reflux kicking in? What does it mean that you can go out to a concert or go to an event and you don't have to worry about IBS anymore? What does that mean? What does it mean when your autistic child is not, showing the standard symptoms of autism anymore? What does it mean that your ADHD child can now focus a little bit more and he's a little calmer and they're eating better? What does that mean, right? You got to get to the substance, right? And I've learned that the more I stay present in that and just focus on who's in front of me, is a game changer. But it took time to do that. And I had to break through a lot of things to get to that point. So I might be rambling here a little bit, but I'm trying to give you guys different perspectives, different angles, different vantage points on understanding how to just let go of the past. But you have to forgive yourself in the past. And I highly recommend listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast. I did an episode on this where I dive deeper into traumas and all that stuff, but you have to let go of that. Like, you have to break through your barriers. I'll talk about things about being uncomfortable, because I started to, at one point in my career, I started using my office as being uncomfortable, having conversations I didn't like to have, confronting, and in the best way I can. Sometimes I don't say things in the right way, but it's like, hey, I'm going to learn. I'm not going to just say, well, that's how I do things and that's it. No, I'm going to keep putting myself in those situations until I master it. And so it's a process. But what I've learned over time is that it's been a massive game changer for me in my career, in my life, my marriage, my coaching, my families, my clients I teach, everything that I do. Everything has maximized. Even as a podcast host, I was doing an interview just last week, somebody who's very prolific in the world, someone who's works with a lot of well-known names, can't mention any of those names. But at the end of the podcast, he's like, man, you asked some great questions. Like, I could feel like you're right here with me, and you're just like in this dance of energy with me. And you're just having a conversation, because I know you said, because in my podcasts are always, when I interview people, it's freestyle. There's no script to questions. I don't like any of that. It doesn't feel natural. I like just to have real raw conversations, and I'm just going to ask questions as they come up that intrigues me. And that's being in the present moment. So imagine if you're like that in your life more, right? But I know I'm kind of blending some things here, but getting back to the point, 0 to 7, what I want you to do is this. I'm going to give you some action steps. Okay. If you don't practice meditation, then wait till the second part I'm going to share. I'm going to give you 2 tips. Number 1, if you look at, first of all, you have to realize what triggers you, right? If someone posts something on Facebook and you get triggered, it's not the person's fault. It's your fault. Go look and why that triggers you. Because triggers, and I share in my book called The Walk in the Dark, triggers are one of the things that give us an access point to understanding what's going on within. You see, that's the beautiful thing about triggers. A lot of times we blame the other person. It's so quick to blame the other person, right? Oh, or label them even better. All these labels, we need to get rid of labels, because you're actually dividing things and you're not allowing chances for people to unite. That's why I don't like a label at anything. I'm very against labels in many ways. But at the same token, I understand the benefit of labels. There's a good side to them also. But in the world that we live in today, labels are divide. That's what they're designed for. But number 1, you want to figure out, feel what is a trigger? What happens? And when you have that trigger, here's 2 things you can do, right? If you practice meditation and just meditate and just tap into, ask the question, why am I being triggered with this? And where did this all begin? Now, you may not get the actual root of it all. If this is your first time doing it, you have to work through this process. But this is what I do. When I get triggered or my self-worth has been affected or whatever, I'm feeling old feelings coming up, I'll go meditate for a while and see until the answer comes. And sometimes it doesn't come in the meditation. Sometimes it takes 2-3 days before I get that answer. Sometimes it'll be, I had a meditation, didn't feel anything. And then all of a sudden I'm driving and then all of a sudden it hits me out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh my God. And I just see like this window, like a video. And I'm like, holy cow, here's where it was. Here's how it stemmed. Okay, here's what I need to do is just process that. If you don't meditate, number 2, which you can do, and you can do both of these too if you want. Get out a pen and paper and just start writing. Don't think, just write and just continue writing. Feel the trigger, let everything out and just keep going. Sometimes you can get into what's called automatic writing, which means you just start writing and you don't even know you're writing. You're just flowing. You're not even thinking, you're just flowing. Sometimes when I need answers, sometimes when I need stuff that I need to pull to find out what's going on and why that is, these are some of the tools that I use that are monumental. They're game changers. And now this is what I depend on more than anything. I have coaches and stuff that I work with too to help me see my blind spots and all that. But these are the 2 tools that have been the most biggest thing for me. And I highly recommend it. It will not only change your impact in your practice, it will not only change your bottom line in your pocketbook. It's not only going to change your relationships, not only going to change your mindset, your mission, your physical body and health, and so much more. It's going to change every element, because you're starting to tap into something that may not be so much logical and understanding, but you'll be able to tap into understand the root. You see, for me, I decided to, and I made a choice to start coaching chiropractors, not because of financial reasons or anything like that. It was, we need to level up the profession. And there's too much, in my opinion, there's too much showboating going on, or who's the coolest group, what's the hype, what's this. And we always focus on just the numbers of what we make financially, patients we see, things like that. And I'm not saying that's not important. Hell, I'm telling you, I'm going to double profits. That's what I do in my coaching programs. But what is the element of leveling up the chiropractor? You see, because we're in a period of life now where the old world was everything I'm sharing: numbers, finances, what you're doing here, how much you're killing it. Look at what I have. Look at the life I'm living, right? We're shifting into a new paradigm that's going on right now that is more about what's the deeper substance. It's not about what you have and what you're doing and the numbers you're seeing. It's the impact of who you are that's making into your community, and you resonating with what truly matters to you and sharing it with others into the world. It's leveling up the human being. We're becoming more whole. That's my mission, and who I work with is how to help you become more whole in every element of your life. And what I've learned working with entrepreneurs is that when we can help the individual become more whole, every aspect of their life thrives like crazy. I've had people coaching in a month or 2, all of a sudden, they've been coaching me for a little bit. So I don't think it's like been a month or 2 of coaching. But after about 4 to 6 months of coaching, we worked through a lot of deep stuff. And then all of a sudden, they get this crystal clarity. They're in a better vibe. And then they're like, I can't believe I'm just having people calling out of nowhere. I have people coming into my office out of nowhere. We have our books full for the week. How is this happening? And I said, get rid of the house. Get rid of the house. because now you're interfering with the flow. Don't ever say, how is this happening? Because you'll always be interfering with the flow. So that's what I got for you guys this week. I hope it was impactful. I know it's going around a little bit here, more on tangents than I like, but the substance is there. And so at the end of the day, you get triggered, meditate on it, journal on it, or do both of them. Heck, do a meditation and journal. Helps and works. I mean, it doesn't harm to do it. But I'm telling you right here, in a book I wrote called Rediscover Your Greatness, I highly recommend reading it. It's on Amazon and everything. It's one of those things I teach these principles in there. I teach about how your emotions is actually an access and window point to allow you to know what you need to work on. And if we learn to be more mindful in our life and more aware about things that are going on in our life, we can be game changers. And that's the mission and purpose of what I'm doing now. I did it for entrepreneurs. I still do it for entrepreneurs. I'm still coaching entrepreneurs, but now I'm making a big shift in the chiropractors because I want to help level up that profession to the highest level being, to create more whole individuals so that we can be all thriving in our lives and doing so much more. So I appreciate you. If it's your first time listening, please subscribe. We release podcasts every week. If you've been inspired by this in some way, shape, or form, or if you know someone who needs to listen to us, pay it forward by sharing it with them. And as always, guys, appreciate you. Check me out on social. Get connected on Facebook and Instagram. So I spend most of my time LinkedIn a little bit, but Facebook and Instagram. Get connected with me on there, and love to anything you may have. If you have a topic you're interested in, or maybe something that you're struggling with in practice or in life, hey, DM me. I'm always looking for new topics to share on there. So appreciate y'all. And until next time, keep rocking and rolling.